and loss. I mean,
oh my gosh, another plane has just hit.
Orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war. These are opening stages of what will be a broad and concerted campaign.
Fire, suppress. Look out! Fire! Hey, land, suppress. Return fire, suppress. Look out! Fire!
Welcome back, everybody, to the Roll the Bones podcast. Joined once again by brother Trev, my dear friend and co-host. And welcome back to the studio, Sergeant Cody Boden. We had a pretty amazing live stream just a few weeks back. Thanks for coming back, bro. But today we're telling your story. You know, this is the first ever live interview we've ever done. You are an Army sniper, U.S. veteran, two-time Purple Heart recipient. But welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me back.
Absolutely.
Do you want to go for it, Trev?
So, Cody, I know, you and I know each other really well, but I would like, to hear about your upbringing, your childhood. I got to meet your dad this weekend. He's a badass old man. But I would really like to hear about, what kind of kid you were, how it was growing up, where you grew up.
Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up what I think would be normal. I guess that's everybody, right? Like, what's your life? What is what normal would be? I grew up with both my parents. They worked. They were both coal miners. By the time I remember anything, when I was a little kid, my dad used to be a driller, but he then crossed over and started working for coal because that's what my mom's dad did. He owned coal mines. So I had pretty normal parents as far as it is. They're pretty strict, and I was born in Grand Junction, Colorado, on the western slope. And then we moved when I was about 3 or 4 up to Rock Springs, Wyoming, and that's really where I remember anything beginning. I played hockey growing up. I went to school, and I was well supported through school and in sports. I was really dedicated to ice hockey until we moved when I was going into middle school time frame. We moved down to Arkansas to start a new coal mine. And down there's not as much ice because it's not as cold down there. But my parents tried, they kept me on ice until, for a good year and a half, we drove to Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was about 2 hours, it seemed like, one way. But, I would get in the car, I'd sleep and they would drive and I'd do homework and they'd drive, we play, practice and drive back until that didn't become feasible really anymore. But, I grew up with both my mom and my father married. They're still married to this day. Like Trevor, like you were saying, I'm almost a spitting image of that dude. I look just like him. I move just like him, sound just like him, as much as I hated it back in the day, Finally I understand that a little bit better. But, I was raised in a whole different way than what we're used to being raised, and not to get into politics, or to bring them up, but politics, religion, and stuff like that was not discussed. My parents were a lot more quiet about their beliefs, their feelings, and stuff like that. So, I knew where they stood, but I didn't ever get a total confirmation of I knew my dad had joined the Army. I knew my grandfather was in the Army. They were both airborne paratroopers. So that was laid in front of me, so I could kind of guess they were more conservative, and being coal miners, they weren't going to go put themselves out of jobs. But, I remember growing up, And I remember when the first election I ever remember is Bill Clinton. I remember asking my parents, like, hey, who are you going to vote for? And they were like, mm-mm. I was like, wait, you ain't going to tell me? Like, what does that mean? You know, who cares? And they're like, we just don't discuss that. We don't discuss religion or politics, you know, anything like that, son. And I'm like, okay. And that's just how I was brought up, you know, in a very,
Yeah.
very respectful way. Like, it wasn't like you're not allowed to know. It was just, we don't openly discuss it. And I think that was with a lot of my childhood, a lot of things looking back that, you know, and I try to parent a little bit differently, not necessarily to persuade my child one way or the other, but to give them the most information and or explain why I am who I am. I was brought up in the Catholic Church. You know, I was an altar boy growing up. I got in all kinds of different little trouble. Though. I was pretty mischievous, you know. I used to like to run around, build forts down in Arkansas. And I remember one time when we moved into a new neighborhood where my dad had built a steel framed house, and they all thought it was like witchcraft compared to wood framing, you know. But you know, he's trying to sell like, hey, if a tornado hits, this thing will stand a lot better than your sticks will over there. So Wayne Lowe was the owner of the subdivision, and he was always out and about. And I asked him, you know, like, hey, can I get some of that wood and stuff? And he's like, what do you need it for? You know, I was like, well, just the scrap wood so I can build a fort up in the trees and stuff. And he was like, yeah, I don't care. He's like, matter of fact, if you come clean up, you can take all the scraps and screws and stuff that are still, you know, that were just dropped. So I was always scavenging for that stuff and picking it up and building forts in the woods. And you know, down in Arkansas, we blow beaver dams up. And I remember the first time I was like 13 and I saw a dude, or I was like 12, 10, 11, 12, a dude swim down in the water, come back up, and he was totally out of breath. And next thing you know, like one beaver's chasing after him and he's swimming and this thing explodes. And I was like, oh, what the heck? You know, like, dynamite in there. Yeah, I don't know what that dude was on, but it was probably one of the most like wildest things I've ever experienced. Somebody's just not, you know, not explain why that they were gonna do it, and all of a sudden out swimming like they're on fire, you know. But Wayne had told me I could do all this stuff, you know, I could clean all this stuff up. And one time I you know how like when they build like brain fart, like when water goes under the bridge like of a road, sometimes they put the concrete barriers like to hold the dirt back, and then it goes under the road. Well, I could stand under there and walk through this tunnel like under the road. It wasn't a big road or anything, it was in a subdivision, but I got a bright idea to dam it up. And Wayne Lowe was out there, and Wayne was like, he's like, hell, if you could build it, he's like, you can dam it up, try it. And well, next thing you know, he had to go get his backhoe because I had the neighborhood flooded back. And my dad came out and he was so mad at me, dude. He was yelling at me, and Wayne's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. He's like, I told Cody he could do it. It was my fault. I didn't know he was a little engineer, you know? So like, I grew up with parents that, you know, let me go out and play, let me learn my own lessons, but definitely held me accountable when it was time to teach me a lesson, you know? I didn't get away with much if I tried to. So, you know, we moved from Arkansas up to Grand Junction, back to Grand Junction when I was going into high school. That was a big culture shock because I came from a small southern town of like the whole school system's 1,300 people to a graduating class of 1,300 people. And at this time I was still playing sports, but I was into baseball. That was my preferred sport because I wasn't a very big kid. I don't know, I was like 110 pounds soaking wet, but I could throw, I could hit, and I could play catcher. So that was my thing. And I will never forget any piece of September 11th when the towers got hit.
Man.
Not the
was
people.
Now. Oh, sorry, not to cut you off, but was that like the linchpin in what made you kind of want to enlist?
Yeah, I remember I was still in school, so I was a freshman, junior, in school, in high school, and I was standing there and watched it happen, and I was like, man, if only, you know. Well, fast forward through high school, I didn't really think about it much, but I had gotten myself into a situation where when my grandpa passed away, I took it pretty hard, and I got into methamphetamines and decided that it would be a good idea to smoke meth on the weekends and be a manager at Big O at a really young age. Like, and I was too good at hiding it. That was the problem. Nobody knew what I did on the weekends because I was successful. So one day a recruiter called me and he was like, you know, and I really wasn't happy in Grand Junction because, you know, Trevor knows from living out here, people from Junction, they call it Sponge Junction for a reason. It's just, there's no jobs, no economy. There's a college, old people, and drugs. That's all that's out there. And so when the recruiter called me, I remember I was sitting on my bed in my parents' house and I laughed, you know, because I couldn't pass the UA. And he's like, you want to join the Army? I'm like, yeah, right. And I got off the phone with him and I was sitting there, and for like the next day, like all I could think about was two things. Like, if I didn't change my life, this is all I had. And I went back to remembering what had happened in high school. Cause I seen news footage that night when we were sitting there. And it really was, what I watched that night. I don't remember if it was directly the same night that they necessarily performed the thunder runs up into Baghdad when they rolled the tanks on the ground, and basically the U.S. decided we're going to take the Army, we're going to drive it straight from Kuwait, and we're going to blow everything up to Baghdad, and we're going to do it by, you know, anything that's got a cannon stuck to it or a gun. And I remember thinking, you know, like, man, I could go do that, you know, like, I don't want to be here, but I could definitely go do that, you know. And I knew both my parents, you know, my grandfather and my father were paratroopers. So at the same time, like a third generation, you know, Army paratrooper, that's pretty hard to find nowadays. You know, I've still tried to figure out if my grandfather's got a mustard stain. He won't talk to me about it, but he's old enough to definitely have been involved in some conflicts back in the day.
Yeah.
Some pretty hairy ones compared to what we know of, you know, especially the type of warfare that they fought in back in those days. So next day I picked up the phone, I called the recruiter and I was like, hey man, I was like, I want to join the Army. And he says, can you pass the UA? And I was like, well, in a week I can, you know, but I can't today. And he's like, all right, well, when you can pass the UA, come in. So next thing I know, I'm standing in the recruiter's office, and he asked me, he says, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, first off, I want to be airborne. So I want to be an airborne ranger. Now he's looking at this meth head, you know, 125 pounds, 5'10", beanpole. And he just laughs at me. He's like, well, yeah, whatever. He's like, but if you know, if that's what you want to do, you can do it. So they got me prepared for MEPS, you know, and I was smart enough. I graduated high school with good grades. I ended up in an alternative high school only because I got in a fight in high school with 4 Mexicans. I got jumped. The fifth one got involved. And at that point, I ended up using a racial slur, even though I was defending myself against 5 of them. And I was advancing on them at this point. So when the principal got a hold of me, heard that, I didn't know my dad had beat him up in high school a whole bunch of times. So I was SOL. You know, they called him Mr. McClaskey, and he had a hand like this because he had ran his 2 fingers through the belt of a car. So it cut his fingers off. So we called him McCloskey all the time. I didn't know, you know, I had no idea. I was picking on the dude my dad beat up. I looked just like my dad in high school. So I was like just bullying it all over again.
He had tunnel vision for sure.
Up for failure.
I don't remember saying what he said. I really don't remember it. But, you know, I don't think I was even talking. I think I was doing, you know, fighting the guys off and whatnot. But so.
How relentless were the recruiters back then in your area?
They were on us, you know, like, cause they were ready to, I mean, at that time we were getting $40,000 just to join, 20,000 to enlist, 20,000 up to 20,000, depending on your MOS. And
right.
And at that time, infantry is really what they needed. So they wanted the ground and pounders. So, they told me 40 grand. I was like, shoot, I'll do that all day long. Like that's just to sign up for a job. I've never got a first paycheck that big in my life,
Right.
So I went in and I went to MEPS and I tested and I got a 126 on my ASVABs, my GT score. So that's your overall. And to be able to do any job in the military, whether it be nukes, flying an aircraft, being a Blue Angel, you have to have a 120 GT score or higher. So I had done anything. And he asked me, the second person to ask me, or second, guy in the Army asked me, hey, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to be an airborne ranger. And here we go again. He's just like, whatever, dude. Like, because he tried to talk me out of it. He's like, you're smart, dude. Like, you don't have to go do this. You're a skinny little twerp, like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, dude, like, I do have to do this. I can change my job later, right? And he's like, yeah.
Right.
So set me up from there, to into delayed entry. I went to MEPS, and that's when right after 9/11, I decided to take shotgun shells on an airplane. That was a bad idea.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yo, do you remember the billboards outside of the airports after? I know at least the airport near here it was probably like 7 feet tall, like 30 feet long, of things you couldn't bring on the airplane. And I remember outside smoking a cigarette, like reading it, like chainsaws were on there. Who's boarding a plane with a chainsaw?
Somebody, they had to cover it.
Like they covered like everything, like barbed wire bat, like ski poles, and then you're like reading through this list, and you're like, who's fucking bringing this shit, bro? Like ski poles make sense. You're going on a vacation or something like that, but like they even listed off like all these different explosive devices, and it was just like that wasn't common sense before.
No,
like
that must have been. I didn't know, but I really didn't even know, because I had two bags. I had my hunting bag, and then I had a bag that looked just like it that I thought I grabbed the empty one.
Right.
I would even work, and the recruiters got all my information. Every time I ever went to the bathroom, every time I ever coughed wrong, I had a stack of paperwork that they do that whole investigation. And he's standing there like, what's the problem? I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, what's in your backpack? And I'm like, nothing, dude. I'm going to join the Army. What would I put in my backpack, And finally, under the thing, they seen it under the hard shell, and then they pulled them out, and I was like, oh, wait, that ain't good. And then I was like, that's my hunting bag. And the recruiter, like the first cop, the TSA and the first cop there was a complete asshole to me, man. Just dicks. And then the sergeant showed up, and he's like, come on, guys. Like, really? Like, this guy's got his entire life in a folder, and you don't think this is possibly an accident, So, like, they ended up letting me go, but the recruiter had to drive me to Denver to get me there on time for my MEPS appointment. But yeah, so I mean, like, it was a crazy time in life, right? Like, you couldn't barely get on an airplane with anything at all.
Yeah, man. My family went on a vacation. We flew to Disney World like right after 9/11, within like probably like 3 weeks or so, maybe a month. And I remember going to the international airport out this way, and it was like there was a like mad National Guard, state police. I don't remember it being super crazy up here, but when I remember landing in Orlando, and they had guys walking with M16s like openly in the airport. The cops on the bikes. They had dogs walking around outside. Every entrance had cops. Oh my God, it was like landing in a military base. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I was a little nerve wracked because we all saw that shit, bro. Like, took me a while before I was comfortable to fly like again. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
But what was your experience though, like with the MEPS? Like what was your take? Because I know you getting poked and prodded and pulled in every direction.
Oh yeah, I mean it was a bunch of we did the testing, because then they they do all your personality testing. They do all your psychology testing, your psychological testing. The funniest thing is when you want to be airborne, you have to be able to duck walk. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah.
On your heels and walk with your feet. But like something like 90% of the world's population can't do that. So if you can't do that, some reason you can't jump out of an airplane. I don't know. I don't know how, like after going to airborne school, you just smash into the ground at 25 miles an hour. That's the truth. Like it's not like you land. They teach you a way to land, but you just smash into the ground. The wind picks you and drags you. You know, it's not anything that's coordinated and beautiful. It's not like you're out there performing it like a ballet movement or something.
Well, I mean, ultimately, you're just trying to get from the fucking airplane to the ground. So, but I still don't understand why they would pick something damn near from a DUI test that 90% of the population can't do.
Right.
I know when I went to Westover, bro, like during my med screening, like that was like the last part. Like you had to go to the room, they had you down to your shorts, bro, and you had to go through. They had different range of motion tests. Walk this way. They checked you for like scoliosis and all kinds of other crazy stuff. But I remember the duck walking being like, I was like, you know, you're standing there, dude, you're trying not to laugh, you know, and I'm standing there in the gunny from my recruiting office sitting there watching, and it's like you're trying not to laugh, and you know if you start giggling, this guy's gonna rip you in half, like, you know, like, but and there's a bunch of people just walking around like they're handicapped. It's the strangest shit in the world. I don't really see the point. You're right, but I'm sure they have a method to it. There's got to, you know,
there's a reason to their madness, and that's what I ultimately I learned out of the military was that boot camp, every school, everything's different, and they have that so meticulously figured out that they weed out the ones that aren't going to make it. They know who's going to do just fine, you know, because I was joining with guys that would get in and start screaming conscientious, however you say it, conscientious objector, you know, I can't shoot somebody just because they believe in a different God or something like that. And they were pulling a really weird card to get out of the military, you know, after they figured out that we were getting ready to go to war. For some reason, they didn't figure that we were already in war and you were in infantry. That's where you were headed to begin with. You know, it's not like a hidden secret like what infantry does. But no, MEPS was one of those situations. Like it's the first part of the culture shock that hits you, and you're like, whoa, like these dudes are straight jerks. Like they don't care. Like you'll just scream at me, talk about my mom like she's whatever, and you don't care. You're gonna go home, kiss your wife, and play with your kids, and you're not gonna ever think of me again. You know?
I don't remember per se that anybody at the MEPS were kind of like the calm before the storm, so to speak. Like they just want to rush you along and get you in and out. So where did you end up going to basic training?
So I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and if I remember right, it was 258 was the barracks. So that's where all infantry goes through Georgia at that time. I don't know if that's still that way, but it's home of the infantry. And man, that's when it all set in. You know, I remember we were on the bus and like you all fly in, and then you start seeing all the guys that look like you. And then you go through in processing, and that's where you get your shots, you get your boots, you get your BDUs, you get your bag, you get all your stuff. And then they shave your head, and they take it on the bus. And then you take this ridiculously long bus ride somewhere. You know, I'm pretty sure they just went around a couple different blocks. Like,
did you go through that USO in Savannah?
No, no, we didn't. We came through Columbus, Georgia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because when I went, they had us go. Flew into Atlanta, and then they brought us over to it was like a short flight, but it was Atlanta to Savannah, and we waited there at like 8 in the morning, and you know the drill instructors didn't come and pick us up until like damn near 10 o'clock at night. But yeah, man, I wasn't sure. I was hoping you were either Benning or Fort Jackson, because I know they're like kind of over here, right, like in the same relation to each other. But
yeah. So I mean, they bust us in broad daylight, and it was, I don't remember what time of day it was, but as soon as we roll up, the shortest little drill sergeant gets on there with the loudest voice and just starts screaming at you, get off the bus, get off the bus. And like, I bumped into him and he headbutted me with his brown round and slit my nose right on just on the side. And like, that was my first taste of like, I can do whatever I want. And if you do anything back, you're done, right? Like, you're toast.
That is the ultimate shell shock, though. Like, when you get there, like, anybody that may or may be in this chat that's thinking about joining, I promise you, you watch all the videos you want. It's not the same. Mm-hmm. Because, like, yo, I got there a day late because it was an ice storm. And I figured, oh, yeah, we'll just blend in with everybody else. Nah, they took the 5 of us that were supposed to be there the night before, and they took us in like a commuter van. And and the guy, like, you know, I was okay until I saw that silhouette, like, coming out the door. They put the campaign cover on and they coming down. And then it was like, that was like, the moment I saw that, I was like, my freaking heart, like, sunk.
Yeah, because that's exactly what they do.
That freaking, and then that stiff, rigid walk. I remember him. He's like, who the fuck told you can be late to my island? And he's lighting us up, like, just, and you don't even know. Yo, I was so panicked, bro. I put 4th Battalion, which was the women's battalion, when you got to fill out that card, and they torched me so bad for that shit. Like,
oh, that's great. Basic was, like, I look back at it, and again, it's a method, right? Like, they're breaking down to build you up, and like, we had about 6 dudes who were these big old fat bacon eating motherfuckers, and every time they smoked us, those dudes would be in there, the drill sergeants, get your bacon grease off my fucking walls. You're fucking up the paint. It smells like fucking pig in here, you know, talking shit to them. Well, these dudes, I didn't even know for a minute, right? So, like, these dudes were sneaking out. They had a couple guys that they were cool with. They'd sneak out to the BXPX, and they would go down and get fucking candy bars because their fat asses couldn't do without them. And then they come back, so they had them all stashed up. Well, one day we come back from chow, and they had just blitzed our entire barracks, tornadoed it, turned it upside down and inside out. And they were like, Operation Cookie Bandit, you know, whatever, all this stuff. And we're like standing around going, what is he talking about, you know? And then they told on him, flat out just told on him. They're like, this dude, and this dude did this. They're going to stand here and watch you guys pay for it. And we're like, oh, fuck you. Needless to say, soap was still served in a hard bar, and socks were still very long. And then a couple of them got what was coming to them, brother. You know what I mean? Like, all of them got their dishing when they got to bed. Like, that was probably the one thing I was glad I was never the recipient of a soap party in basic, because
no, I never got beaten down. But there was definitely somebody that deserved it in there. And I'll never forget, bro, like, we, you know, I don't know how the Army structure is with their drill instructors, but you got the one, like, your senior drill instructor, you got the heavy that's like kind of more instructional, and then we had a kill hat, the one that's just really there to be like a nightmare for you.
Yeah.
And they would cycle who was on, like, staying in the barracks or in the squad bay for the night. And there was this kid that was in my platoon that, I don't know, he was on fire watch, bro, in the middle of the night. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning on a weekend, so it really wasn't a training day. You know, we were just going to work out and do, like, work details and stuff like that. This fool starts pounding on the drill instructor hut at, like, and wakes him up. And he was like, oh, everybody's been working so hard. I think this recruit and the recruits get a little extra sleep. And I was still awake for some reason because I was getting off a watch. And I'll never forget, he's like, very well. And then he, like, went inside. And then within, like, 5 minutes, he came out in full uniform and everybody started their day. Like, oh, it was so bad. Like,
bad day.
Oh, dude, like, yeah, so I get it when you're talking about people that just, they get that reckoning, bro. What do you think the funniest punishment you ever went through was down there?
So I think that's the funniest, man. So a couple of the guys couldn't get their lockers figured out, so they made us take everything inside the barracks and set it up on the field outside, dress right, and the of a thunderstorm, and it started raining, and they were screaming at us to hurry, right? Because everything's getting wet already. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter what we do, it's gonna get wet. There's an entire furnished out here, and bunk beds are disassembled, they're reassembled out there, and they were measured, and we had the lines and everything. Like, it was just like the barracks were set up, but outside. And then they made us lay in the thunder and the lightning and the rain at the position of attention, and made us sing the Star Spangled Banner all night until everybody was awake. And it was just like, I remember I remember just laughing at it, like, this is dumb. Like, it's not going to kill me, and if it does, oh well. But like, I highly doubt anything's going to kill me here. But I there were so many dudes breaking, crying, quitting. And ultimately, that's what they want to find, right? They want to find the point of your threshold, whatever that may be, that you throw in the flag. And a lot of guys don't have it in basic, you don't see it a lot, but you see a good, I'd say probably 10% of the guys just snap and they're done. They can't do it no more. And they turn into the biggest babies and they quit, or they start crying about their mamas and this and that, or find some excuse to go home. But that was probably the funniest thing. I mean, it wasn't very funny at the time, but looking back, it was the funniest one that I get to tell a story of,
I remember they used to, on occasion, they would either do the air raid where there'd be like a chain of drill instructors that would just run through and trash the place. But I remember they would make us, there was a couple times they made us dump all the, like, out everybody's Foot Locker into the middle of the room, and then take like the guide flag, like the platoon guy would have, and replicate the raising of the flag of Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
Which, oh yeah.
Man.
And like, and it was so, dude, it was, because if they got time to mess with you, like, you don't have anywhere to go. Like, a friend of mine told me that going in. He's like, if you're standing there and you're getting torched, you're ahead of schedule. So they're just killing time.
Yeah, they have nothing better to do but to literally fuck with you.
Oh yeah, I did see a kid spit on the ground one time, like when we were out, and the guy was just like, "Put that nasty shit back in your mouth," and the kid looked confused. He made him like there was like pine needles, and he's like, "Put it back in your mouth and keep it there." And like, I was trying so hard not to just lose my shit laughing.
I would have. I'd have taken the smoking. I'd have been like,
did you have like that? Did they give you like the box chows? Like, like if you were out in the field, it was just like a sandwich and like powdered Gatorade or Powerade.
That or the sloppiest eggs that ever showed up in the morning.
Oh, bro, they're like made of tires, bro. Like, I think like old tires. I knew, because they would take you back to the squad, but you probably remember you do the piss and fill. Like, you got to fresh water in the canteen, use the bathroom. And I realized at that point, because when you go back, remember they make you upend it before you got the fresh water in there. We were on the field, like we had chow like out in one of the training fields, and I poured that powdered Gatorade into my canteen. And it was like that freaking, and there were mad people around me did too. So it was like, as soon as they said dump it out, like it was like that snap moment. It's like, bro, like I fucked up bad. And when we had to upend it, bro, it looked like a rainbow from all the shit. And this dude went fucking crazy, bro. Like,
ballistic.
Oh my God. He was just like, looks like the fucking Navy section over here. Oh my God. He went wild, bro.
Oh, I bet. No, and they, because that's their big thing is like, teaching you how they use that as a weapon to screw with you, but really they're just trying to keep you hydrated. I think I remember I remember our first shower when they did the car wash on us, one of our first showers, and they gave us like 1 bar of soap to 50 dudes in like, we had 5 minutes to shower, and it was like, okay, how are we going to do this? And it was like, literally you walk in, get wet, the soap comes to you get all soaked up, and then you walk out. And that was my first ever experience around being fucking naked around a bunch of dudes at all.
You got used to prison before you even went to prison.
Right. But man, you should, looking back at it now, dude, there was so many dudes that thought that was the coolest thing ever. And it was like, wait a minute, how did you like that situation? Like, something's wrong with you.
Questionable.
I'm the same unit now, Yeah,
but there's some demented guys in there. Like there was this dude. I'm still friends with him today, who I met down there, and yo, he was doing the helicopter, like, and he was like leaving the thing, like leaving the fucking the shower. And when one of my drill instructors was coming in to tell people to hurry the fuck up, and also I was still in there, and all I heard was, "Yo, shit, touch my arm," and bro, like, I was like, dude, I just say it, and I'm getting like burned by the water. I'm like, I ain't coming out of there, like. Yo, he'll tell you that story straight up. He still laughs about it today because they made him march. They marched his naked ass outside. And he was doing push-ups. He's like,
Wasn't doing the helicopter while he was doing push-ups, right?
I promise you, I never saw him dance ever again, bro.
Scared.
He told me when he got married, he was like, bro, I don't even know if I want to dance in my wedding. Like,
right? There was one time, probably one of the like worst things that I seen that was like, fuck, this is serious, man, is we were doing like they were like the team drills where they have like poles suspended, like you're over water. All of them are over a water obstacle, so if you fall, you don't get hurt. But like you had to like all get across something or all get through something together as a team. And it took you all 6 of you to do it somehow, you know, like you had to get this pole from here to here and get across and then get the pole across. But we had finished and I was coming off the pole I was coming off of the pole and we were crawling backwards up it or hanging off of it, crawling up it. And I was coming off and going through the window and coming down. And when I did, this guy was in the front lane and rest, one of the other dudes from another platoon. And he started getting sick and he puked on a drill sergeant's boot. And I've never seen a dude catch a size 11 black to the back of the head so fast. That dude came up and his nose was flattened to the side of his face. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the Army now. Like, they can't touch you. You got cell phones. They would record it happening if it did. You know, like, it's a way different military now. But that dude just straight from the front lane and rest, the drill sergeant just curb stomped him right into the ground, straight down. You know, and I was like, oh, Lord, that's not good. Right into his own vomit at the same time. You know, not only was his nose broke, but he was in his own puke. But that dude ended up going AWOL not that night, the next night, because they put him on fire watch and then everybody was watching him there. You know, the fire watch was right next to his bed. They moved the desk over next to his bed. Well, so he couldn't sleep. And then they did it the second night. And that dude literally just ran out, hit the fire alarm and never came back. Like, we all knew he ran out. He didn't try to hide it, nothing. But, you know, like, if you're in that position, you got to kind of figure it out, I guess. I don't know. I never found myself in that position of throwing up on a drill sergeant's boot or being weak enough to run away, you know. There was a dude from Czechoslovakia. So I don't know if you had any guys, but you can earn citizenship by joining the United States military. And they barely speak English, but they speak English pretty good, you know, decently. And this dude Tadic, he was a big old Yugoslavian motherfucker. And this dude would go up a rope just with his hands, right? He could go 35 feet up, straight up a rope with his hands. I couldn't even climb a rope if I had 6 feet, you know? I wasn't built like that. I had to learn how to climb a rope to begin with. And when I first, and they got out the Pugil sticks. Did you guys ever have to use the big old Q-tips with the helmets?
yeah. Well, I mean, I couldn't climb the rope either. I got winded when they were explaining it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, dude, I rolled in there like out of shape. They were telling me, oh, you got to do CrossFit. You got to do this and that. I'd be like, yeah, man, I'm working out hard. I rolled in the bar every night until I ran into the master sergeant there. And then he dragged me. He was just like, he ordered me a drink and he was like, good, I'm picking you up. And we're going to CrossFit first thing in the morning. But yeah, I couldn't run, climb. I barely changed my fucking pants, bro.
Right. Yeah, no, this dude, so they were like, they called out partners for Pugil or whatever, and they were just pulling numbers. And Tadic, this dude was huge. And he came across and he hit me in the face so damn hard, like he rocked me. And I like spun down and I remember I was hunched over and he was behind me. Like he had spun me around and I was like, fuck, what do I do? You know, I was thinking to myself, like, I'm gonna fucking get knocked out by a big ass Q-tip too, you know? And all I could do was this. And I went back up and I caught that dude in the bottom of the chin and knocked him out totally by accident, not by any sort of like I knew what I was doing at the time. And Yeah, I figured out how to climb the rope when I was trying to get away from his ass that day, because I was like, shit, this dude is gonna kill me. Because he woke up and I ended up in Alaska with him. I don't know if Trevor, you remember the donkey punch story?
Yep,
Yep, that was him.
that's
This
brutal, bro.
literal Sanchez or the donkey punch. He thought that was something Americans actually did. So then, like, you would hear of him doing it to a girl, or and you're like, no, that's a joke, bro. Like, you don't give him a dirty Sanchez. That's not. No, like humor. Like, we're just kidding. No, don't do that. But so basic was fun, and with us, basic was straight basic to AIT, which was infantry training, and that was literally you did an about face, and the drill instructors were standing on the other side of you. And they're all right, welcome to infantry school. You got another 4 weeks of hell with us, and then you roll on to your unit. So, from there, we went from basic to AIT, and then from AIT to airborne school. And airborne school was the first time I ever had any kind of a hiccup in general. Like, I didn't know what was going on, but like I was in the middle of I'd already done my sit-ups. And then I did the run, and I did the run in 12 something minutes. So I was way over time. I was going to have plus points at that time. And so then after that, I had push-ups. So I was getting ready to do push-ups, and they got me down. I was doing them, and I got to 41 because 42 is your pass, right? And it was 41, 41, 41, 41, 41, 41, 41. I swear I did 41 push-ups 41 more times. And they kept doing it. And I got up, and I was like, I was just like, what the fuck? How did I fail? You know what I mean? How did I fail push-ups? And I was pretty down on myself. And like, I took off walking, and one of the Sergeant Airborns came over, and he was like, listen, he's like, Boden, he's like, stop. He's like, the class is full. He's like, it has nothing to do with you. Wait 1 week. You're going to hang out here, and then you're going to get through. But I never ever was the first in line, but I was never again in the back of the pack, because those are two places you don't want to be in the military. You don't want to raise your hand and volunteer for anything, and you don't want to be the last one to do it either, because you're going to get the shit into the stick. But after that, no, I mean, like, basic and airborne school were probably the most fun I've had. Carefree, shooting guns, jumping out of airplanes. Even though I'm scared of heights, that's a whole different conversation, though.
Cody,
All right,
if you could just give me a second real quick. We got some family in the chat. JD rolled in with a bunch of the wood chipper tribe. Thank you guys.
the High Chieftain of the Wood Chipper tribe in the Wood Chipper Nation is in the house. Much appreciated, brother. And I agree with you 150%. Hit that like button if you're not Antifa.
Absolutely.
But welcome everybody that's new. This is it's great to have everybody here. Just to get you up to speed, Cody is airborne sniper, 2-time Purple Heart recipient, and we're just covering the comical parts of basic training and whatever, but we're about to get into some real shit. So Trev, you want to take us into the next point or the next part?
Absolutely. So Cody, can you give me the rundown on, like, first deployment? What happened? I know personally, you and I being very good friends, like, Alaska was a thing. I mean, was there anything of effect in your life when you were stationed out there, or did it really start getting heavy when you went overseas?
So I mean, I when I got up to Alaska, I had a different way of getting up to Alaska. That sounds weird. So I was in Ranger Indoctrination Program, which is RIP, and it's one of the hardest schools in the military, along with SWIC, which is the SWIC babies, RIP babies. That's the ones that join just to go Special Forces, or they join to go Ranger. Well, so I had made it through all the way through RIP and everything, and I ended up having a broken foot on the final road march, and they pulled me off, and they were like, you're not going to finish. And I'm like, yes, I am. And they're like, no, you're getting in the truck before you basically lose your foot. So without being given the decision and forcefully told I couldn't finish, normally you get a stamp that says you can't return. They're like, nope, never come back. If you fail RIP, you fail SWIC, you're never coming back. I did get a return stamp that I could come back, because they asked me, they're like, do you want to stay or and heal up, or do you want to go to a unit? And I was like, I'm not staying here, bro. There's fleas in the fucking beds. There's all kinds of nasty shit in those barracks. Like, I'm not staying here. And it's meant to be worse than basic, because they want to make sure you really want to be one of them motherfuckers, that you're going to go in there and you're going to do everything you can to become one of them, stay one of them, and live and breathe just like one of them, which I didn't disagree with one bit. And I was like, well, if you're giving me the option, I'm going to go to a unit and I'll come back. Like, that's not a big deal. And so, and this was before they let women and the majority of MOSs into Ranger School. It was still technically a infantry man school only. Like, that was just how it was. I don't think it was strictly infantry, but I know it was men only, and like combat MOSs, if I remember right. They didn't let cooks go. It wasn't a leadership school as it is now.
What's the pass fail like ratio for Ranger School? I know it was high.
Back then it was very high fail rates. Now it's swung the other way, because they had to lower the physical standards. Like, we were out in swamp phase, and we were road marching. It seemed like we were rucking for so long. I pulled off to pull security, and like, I was laying there and I was doing everything I could to stay awake. Like, my head was hitting the helmet, or my helmet was hitting my gun every time I blinked my eyes. It felt like, but I think the attrition rate for Ranger School at that time was right around 40%. So 60% failed, 40%, or vice versa. I always get that confused, because the one true attrition rate that I do know is like sniper school. Sniper school is definitely a 9 out of 10 fail. Like, it is, you fail out 50% fast.
Now with sniper school, do they recruit you based off of your cutting score inside of basic, or do you apply
from the unit? So I had been up in Alaska at this point. And since I was in the first, I went from RIP program up to Alaska, where I luckily had my recruiter was stationed up there. Like, I got out of the bus, or out of the CQ van from the airport, and I heard this voice, and it's this country Missouri motherfucker. And I'm like, I know that dude from anywhere. It doesn't matter where we're at on this planet. That dude talks, and I know his name. Master Sergeant Henderson at the time. And I was like, that's Master Sergeant Henderson. I look over, and sure as shit, it was him. So he picked me up, and I got squared away right into the unit. But they were starting the 1st 40th Cav, which we replaced LURS D. So LURS D would be your leg unit, not out of airplanes, that did all the long-range reconnaissance detachments. So really your scouts, not necessarily scout snipers, but your scouts / scout sniper at the time. And but we were coming out of an airplane, so we didn't have to walk quite as far to get to where we needed to go, or we could come out of the helicopters and drop right onto where we needed to be. So it was really a test unit to figure out if this would work or not. So 1st 40th Cav, they got hand selection of everybody that came up to Alaska. And I think when I first got there, the unit was so small, I was like, a sergeant major was actually my technical position, not my rank. My position that I filled was like, I was like the 9th guy there. So like an E7 was the battalion commander. And then an E6 was the E9 of the, in charge there. And then it broke down to whoever it just, until they were able to get the actual rank in position, they just fill it top down. No matter if you've been in the Army a day or 90, that's all it is, until that rank actually up, or somebody higher ranking then takes your spot. So Sergeant Bostic at the time, he hand selected all the RIP and SWIC dropouts and failouts. He was like, listen, if I'm going to take the best of the best, I'm going to get the best that's already been to the hardest schools and been tested and tried a little bit more, and see how this works out. So First 40th Cav is a Rista battalion, was set up a little bit different than most units. So we had scouts, we had infantry, and that's how snipers came in, because scouts can't go to sniper school. Only 11 Bravos can. So you have to be a door kicker. So we went in, and my unit of Charlie's group was all majority 75% infantry, 25% scouts. So then they trained us how to be scouts, and then the other 3 units were the opposite, and they trained the scouts, or then the infantry trained the scouts how to be infantry. So it's kind of bass backwards, but it worked out. And it really went off of your shoot scores and your PT. So you have to qualify 3 times expert, and then you have to actually, I think that's technically like your only qualifier you really have to have, other than the people pulling for you to go, is you have to have expert 3 times, if I remember right. And we did a battle march shoot between our whole unit. So there was 515 guys applying for 7 slots. Now, they already said, listen, it doesn't matter what your rank is. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the Army. It doesn't matter what you look like, nothing. We're sending the best 7 shooters and physically fit, combat ready guys to sniper school. So this is what it is. And I was like, cool, that sounds like a good plan to me. Well, luckily, my platoon sergeant came from Ranger Bat, so we were doing 10-mile rucks. We were doing 20-mile runs at least twice a week. So then when they tell us, it's a battle march shoot, then they tell us, all right, you're going to ruck as fast as you can for 12 miles. You're going to take 125 pounds. You go from point A to point B. That's 12 miles. The end of that 12 miles is a known distance shooting range of 1,000 yards. And when we got there, you had a magazine on every berm. You had a magazine. You had 10 magazines on the 100-meter berm, and they were marked 10 down to 1. So you had to run. You took all your ruck and everything off at that point, and you were just you and your weapon. And you ran from the 1,000 to the 100, back to the 1,000, you shot. 1,000, 100, 900, you shot. 900, so on, all the way in to 25, to where you shot 1,000 in. And your 100 yards you did, and then there was one more, so I guess it was 11 max, because you did shoot 25 feet and under. I missed 1 round at 800 yards, and I missed 2 rounds under 25 meters. So I had missed a total of 3 rounds, and I was the second fastest guy to get done. So I was pretty much a shoe-in at the time. Like I was sitting there just praying on my holy stars, like nobody, because like the first 10 guys in, that's pretty much who you got to worry about, because they're the most physically fit. So they should be the better shooters and more capable to shoot. But then if you figure it in, because somehow they waited, I don't know how they figured it out, but like if you were within 10 minutes of us or 15 minutes of us, like your shooting scores, if they were that much better, you could actually do better and get in. But I was like the second selected as a yes, and we were told right in the moment, like, yes, yes, yes. So we had 1 E5 or 2 E5s make it, and then the rest were all privates and specialists. Like, we were just young and very new to the Army. And sniper school is a gentleman's course. It is all E6 and higher. Now, you don't have to be that rank. It's just that's normally how long it takes you to get to sniper school. Because usually the sniper unit's established, a guy has to retire, and then they slide another guy in.
Right.
And that's, my buddy Robert, he's good. I want him to come over, so we're going to bring him over, and everybody likes him, so then he comes over. But from there, we left for sniper school, man. Like that was a hard school, because it's not only about like shooting. You have to be smart. Like, you have to have good eyes, yes, but your brain has to be able to understand things the way the Army wants you to understand it. And that, you know, like you would do target detection and they would put you in a field with 3 red boxes. You have like 50 meters, I think, in between the 2 outer ones, and then 25 meters, the middle is where they would have another red one. And you had to go from both sides of the box and you had to like identify everything that you've seen out there in this wood line and in the grass that was not supposed to be there. Well, most people don't find their face. Like literally, I laid down at the box, or I laid down 10 feet from the center red box, and I just happened to sneeze, and I like put my head down, and when I opened my eyes, I looked up, and there was a red micro machine sitting in the grass. I was like one of like 5 people that actually got that, and they don't tell you about that beforehand. You know, nobody does. And then you have to know what it is. Is it serviceable? And if so, what damage can it do to you? So they would have like at the time, you know, like the brain fart, the radios, the bigger radios, not like the embed or small ones, but the bigger radios, they would have like in the tree, you would see a cord wrapped around the tree and then the headset sitting up in the tree. Well, if you found it, you had to figure out what it was, is it, you know, and what can it do to you? Is it serviceable? How do I know this thing's serviceable when I can't go touch it? You know? So really it's a guessing game at the same time as knowing your objects and what they can possibly do. And I mean, a hand radio, like the controller, there shouldn't be anything that can be wrong with it. It can get wet. It's pretty bulletproof, you know, unless you literally shoot it. You know, maybe then it won't work, but as long as it's held together and all the wires are there, you're good. And then like they do after that, the harder part is after that, they don't tell you, like you write it all down and then they collect your paperwork. And then they put you on like I think it was a 10-mile road march back. And we had our 50 cals and they made us carry our 50 cals with ammo in them, which, geez, Pete, you want to talk about a heavy gun? That's 60 pounds that you're holding out in front of you like this, thinking you look like Rambo, but you feel like a little girl, you know? And so you get back and they hand you a piece of paper and they tell you go in the classroom and rewrite everything down to the best of your knowledge. Well, as soon as you walk in the classroom and you sit down, you sit at the desk and then they turn off the lights. And it was like a disco porn party, and out of nowhere, there was porn playing on the roof, on the walls, and they had Metallica. It was the loudest blinking light porn. It was wild. And then they were yelling at you to stand on the desk, right on the desk, stand on the desk, right on the ceiling, sit on the floor, right on the desk. Like you're having to do this while remembering what you've seen, remembering what it was, and putting it on the piece of paper accurately, right? How do you prepare for that?
That's fucking nuts, dude.
How does anybody prepare for that? They don't even teach you that happens. I mean, most people probably don't even know that happens, you know? And plus you got Pamela Anderson getting smashed out in the front, you know?
Well, you know, I talked to somebody that was telling me the wild questions it was part of like a psychological exam, allegedly, if you're going in for like, I think it was force reconnaissance or SEAL training or something in special operations, but they said that they would ask you just straight as can be, you know, what do you think about a midget fucking a giraffe? And it's mainly because they want to see your reaction.
Right.
And I like when they told me, I fell apart. And even my recruiter was like, you fucking straight up failed, bro.
Yeah.
And I was just like, how am I not going to laugh at such an insane statement?
Right. Like, well,
but they apparently have a questionnaire that's like a mile long of just the craziest types of questions.
So one of them, I didn't get that one, but one of the questions I did get asked was, and I got to word this right. So, a girl goes to her cousin's wedding the next week, or a girl goes to her cousin's or her friend's funeral the next week her cousin dies. Why? And you're just sitting there and you're like, what? So I sat back and I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, that's easy. She met the love of her life, so she killed dude. You know what I mean? And I was just joking. I was just giving an off-wall answer. And this guy just sat back and he was like, "That's what 90% of psychopaths answer." That's a question they ask people like Dahmer and shit in prison, right? Like
It
somebody
makes sense.
about killing, and that's what they're wanting to see. Like, are you able to be analytical about something different when it's not, not normal to be analytical about it? I was just joking. I was like, "Oh, she murdered him because she wanted to, see dude again that she hooked up with, And I was joking, but that was like, I guess I was like a couple sentences off of what a psychopath would say, and I mean,
Good thing you didn't fire up the PowerPoint presentation of why,
yeah. Already an aggressive sociopath. I run at bullets when they start getting fired. That's the truth, I have no regard for my life, and it doesn't matter if I have a gun or not. I feel like I can do something and make a difference in that situation. They also have like written. Thing that I struggled with the most was the written test. I actually technically failed the written test, the final, by 3 questions, and they pulled me in there. Well, I guess you can miss 2. I missed 5. So they pulled me in there and they're like, "Tell me why you answered this." Now, mind you, they give you a shitty photocopy, printer paper, shittiest printer on the planet. It's black and white, and they're asking you questions like outline, shade, shadow, and this guy's sitting in a bush with binoculars, right? And they say, "What is this?" Well, outline, because a bush doesn't have circles. There's no perfect circle in the world, nor does Mother Nature have the color black. Those are the 2 things, dead giveaway. Color, outline. No, they wanted shade. That was their answer, right? So, long story short, I answered all 5 of my questions correctly. I just had to explain them. So they ended up changing my answers and saying, "Well, yeah, actually, he's right." Like, I guess that's more of a, how you look at the question more than if the question's right or wrong. And there was a time in sniper school too that like me and my they send down. So when you go, they send down every person that goes gets a sniper buddy, and that's a guy that's already been through sniper school to help you go through it. But they can only tell you certain parts of it, right? So like they'll pull them in and they'll be like, "Make sure you don't tell them this, 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 and this." Like the porn on the wall stuff or the micro machine. Like those are rites of passage. Those are things that we either earn beforehand from that guy, or you use them to fail out the turd in front of you. If so be it. And we were on the firing line one day. Me and Robert were, and Redfern and I were yelling back and forth over the guns. We were not yelling at each other, but that's what the instructor thought. And he smoked the entire platoon. Now, mind you, when the last time you think a bunch of E6s and E7s got smoked like they were in basic training? Never. Like, it's been 20 years, probably 15 years for some of these guys, at least 10. These guys, I thought I was going to die that night. Like, I thought I was dead. He was off in a hotel drinking. I was there at the barracks shaking in my boots like, "Man, I'm going to get a sock party tonight," like, these guys, I got them in trouble. And lo and behold, I didn't get in any kind of repercussion from it. But, it's a challenge of a school. And there is a point in that school that they also allow the class to fail out the people that aren't worth being there. So when you're doing night fires, it's really hard to see if somebody hit a target or not, right? So when you're doing the walking, there's a guy that walks behind a berm. There's 2 of you. One walks and holds the stick, and you hold it to your chest and it's got a silhouette above your head. And you just walk and they shoot at it. Well, you pull it down, and guess what? You either cover a hole up with a sticky or you say miss. And that's where, like, really the opportunity comes if there is any dirt bags that you get to fail them out. Sorry, if you got any questions.
Before we move on, because I know Trev's got a good one, like a question lined up, but what type of weapon did they train you on when you were in school?
You trained on the M24 and the M107. So the 308 M24, which is the 308 or 7.62, and then you trained on the 50 cal M107 Barrett.
Now, when you're going through the training cycle, are they training you to do a solo shoot, or did you have, like, when you were out, did you have a spotter, like one of those things? I don't know if those weapons were out where they had the camera rig that could see your field of vision.
No, so when I was in, it was you and a spotter. It was up to you and your spotter, which I'm trying to think, because Robert would spot when we were actually shooting for score, and then you spotted when you were more or less training, right? So they didn't let me spot for another candidate, unless they really trusted you or you really trusted somebody else. I was able to spot for one other guy because his sniper buddy was sick or something, and he was like, "No, I trust Boden. Boden's got great eyes. Let him spot." And part of that was because I'm left eye dominant, but I shoot right-handed, so I would always be on a spotting scope with my left eye, and I would shoot with my right eye. So I had two black eyes in school from looking down so much. And like, that's what a lot of people don't realize either, is like, you look up and down a scope that often, your eye will be black from how much it gets used. Just the muscles, flexing back and forth. That answer what you were asking?
Yeah.
And you later moved on to using bigger rounds like 338 Lapua and
yeah, and later on, once you leave the unit, or once you leave training, like you can, I mean, when we were overseas, we got 45 Glocks, we got all kinds of different weapon systems over there. And then, civilian side, I purchased all kinds of different weapons. 338 Lapua would definitely be one of my more favorite rounds for anything. It's a big round and it takes a long time to start tumbling, but when it tumbles, it isn't gonna matter. It's gonna hit somebody like the broadside of a bus. You get hit by a bus doing 200,000 or 200 or 2,000 feet per second, it's gonna hurt. Even if it is that big of a bus. But yeah.
We got a good friend of mine here in the chat that has I can't, like, I don't have my glasses, so I can't read it right quick. If you can read it for me, Trey.
Average Joe said Scout Sniper School in the Marines is definitely much different from the Army. It seems we don't get a sniper buddy to assist us with anything. You have your spotter, but he's also in the course. He's also into the course.
Still do have a spotter, but you have a guy. It depends on if, I guess I worded that wrong. So you have the guy that comes down that helps you. And I don't know if the Marines send anybody down with you or not. That was just what the Army does. But I spotted somebody. I didn't have a spotter, or I had a spotter and I had to spot for somebody else because his spotter was sick. But when we were training, we had our sniper buddy right there with us. And that's who helped us more than anything. Marines is longer too, which I don't know why. I guess they just drag it out longer. I don't know. There's only so much you can do to learn how to shoot, and they spend less time with that. It sounds like Marines was pretty physical. They had a lot more physical. It wasn't as much as a gentleman's course as the Army is per se, but they definitely, I mean, with an attrition rate of only 10 to 25% passing, that's probably why they still let you have somebody come to school with you. And it's somebody from the sniper unit that's been through school.
He said classroom instruction and then range time to learn how to calculate.
Yeah.
But
I've never ever got to sit down with a Marine, a Marine that actually went to sniper school. I've talked to plenty of Marines and compared like timelines of like how long you did something, because like, I don't know, my favorite thing was the ghillie wash. That's because you just were on top of each other's shoulders fighting each other, and then when you went through to test your ghillie suit, that was a wild ass time. And when we got done doing our ghillie wash, Marines, or not Marines, excuse me, Ranger School and Sniper School sit next to each other in Fort Benning, and they're off in the middle of nowhere. Well, once you become a sniper, you no longer want to be a ranger. Like, you will never put a ranger tab on if you have one. You'll throw that shit in the trash. You'll never even claim you went to that school again. And rangers hate snipers because they're right next to each other. Well, we were coming out of our ghillie wash as the ranger school was doing their buddy run, and they're running with their blue ducky guns, looking like a bunch of idiots. And right there at the exit of the ghillie wash, you came up on the road, and they had a rack with all of our 50 cal sitting there. And mind you, we had already marched in our ghillies. We had already fought on each other. Chicken fought with no water, which was kind of weird. But chicken fought from each other's shoulders to tear each other's ghillie suits to make sure they would make it. You had rucks there to the ghillie wash to do that, and then you went through the ghillie wash, which was 3 fire hydrants on full open, and like they went through the woods in a different path, you know, and you'd have to go up over something, under something, and then through the water, and then you'd have to go under the water and down through, just all kinds of stuff to like wear you out even more.
A whole lot of bullshit.
Heavy outfit, you know, because it's soaking wet. And they're like, hey, you better not be last. You better be first on that buddy run. And half of the formation's already gone. And you're like, fuck this. I got it. Fuck them pussies. I got this shit to the max. Like, and we took off running. I came out, and I was like the 5th guy through the ghillie wash. And I heard him say it, and I'm like, no way. These dudes are they're in little booty shorts with little crop tops on, you know, and a fake gun that's blue. Like, how is this even fair? We road marched 12 miles out to or 12 kilometers to where we're at. So we already walked 6 miles to get where we were. We've already been through the ghillie wash. We're already tired to beginning with. And now we're running 5 miles, which they had only ran 600 meters of that 5 miles to that point. So
there's a big difference, obviously, right? There's just obviously a major difference between what you're going through and what other people are going through.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he not to cut you off, but yeah, Joe said Ranger School has a huge impact on the Marine Corps recon units and sniper platoons. We send people to Ranger School and just to bring back the wealth of knowledge to units when they return.
So, Cody,
when were you in? That's my curiosity. When was the guy? I didn't Avenger whatever. I didn't catch it.
Average Joe.
Average.
Yeah. When were you in, buddy?
Because sniper. Here's the thing about Ranger School. Ranger School is a leadership course, and when I was in, it wasn't considered a leadership school.
All right. He was in 03 to 2013.
We were in the same years. Exact same years. So they weren't letting women in the school. So yes, at that time, I agree with you. That is a true statement to make. It was worth going to both schools if you didn't have both sets of knowledge, right? Whereas for us, we already learned everything they were teaching us in Ranger School. And for some reason, they just butted heads. And since we're Army on Army, we just like sell crimes for some reason. But no, I would agree with what he's saying. For a Marine to come over and go, that'd be like me going to Marine Scout Sniper School. Like they do teach things differently. They use different, not necessarily different tactics, but there's still more knowledge, right? Like there's more history that they have that's different from us because we don't do most waterborne type things. You know, other than being in the ghillie wash, we didn't do any swimming, you know, other than that. But whereas being in the Marines, you're attached to the Navy. I'm attached to the Air Force jumping out of airplanes. But no, Ranger School at that time would be worth going to. In 2000, I want to say 2010 is when they started letting women into the school. And that's really when it went downhill. And they had to change the quality of the school, right? What they said to them, how they treated them, and the physical limitations of the school changed. And I'm not trying to dog any women, but it changes the man's expectations also, which I don't think they should have ever changed our expectations just because they had to change the physical expectations for the women. And they shouldn't have changed our psychological expectations just because the women came in. If you didn't want to hear a bunch of dudes talk
It
like that,
should have been separate for sure.
you know?
It definitely should have been separate. I don't mean to cut you off, Cody, but I would like to kind of transition a little bit. I would love to hear about, your first deployment, if we could get into that.
Yeah, and so I was training all the way through 2005 into 2006. In late 2006, November 2006, we deployed to Southeast Baghdad. I was with the 1st 40th Cav, and I think we originally deployed. I don't ever remember who we were attached to because I never cared. But I think we were technically under Big Red 1, which is out of Germany. That's who the big unit was. Whereas we were part of 25th Infantry, so we didn't have control of the country, not our division. So we fell under another division, and my company specifically took care of an area in a town called Arab Jabor, and it was right along the Euphrates River. And it had a route. It had a couple different routes in and out of it that were used for gun and weapon smuggling. Shoot, when we got there, people acted like they hadn't seen an American yet, to be honest, because anytime they tried to go down there, they would take vehicles and they'd just get blown up. So they were like, "Oh, we quit. We're not going to go down there." Well, we were light infantry, so we had Humvees, and in our mind, like, why would I put 5 of us in a little enclosed area and drive down a road I'm going to have to drive on, when I could put us all in a formation and walk our ass through that field and then walk our ass through that one the next day? You don't know where we're going to walk. There's still checkpoint or choke points where you're dealing with crossing over bridges and, waterway or, water obstacles that you have to cross a pipe, or bridges where you cross over canals, stuff like that. But you can eliminate a lot of those areas and choke points and dangerous points by walking through the field, getting a little muddy. Yeah, you got anything specific?
I mean, was there heavy when you first got there? Was it heavy combat as right away? We did put in the beginning of the video in case anybody's here who was in JD's stream. We put a lot of your photos from your deployments. We put a lot of different things. Obviously, Chris is just stepping away for a minute. He'll be right back with us. But how long were you there until it was like, holy shit, I'm not home anymore. These motherfuckers want to kill me.
Sorry.
Like, you're good.
I'm sore. Let me say, Kuwait was 2 weeks. So we came from Alaska, and we left in the beginning of November. And when we came from Alaska, it was 40 degrees, right? So you're going from 40 degrees to 140 degrees, basically. Not really.
But yeah, I got you.
So they made us go to Kuwait, where we had to acclimate to the conditions out there. So we spent 2 weeks in Kuwait, which was a poor representation of what combat even is like. It's just like a hangout camp in the middle of the desert. Everybody's just doing PT and eating eating good food too at that. And then we flew into Baghdad, and we flew into Baghdad International Airport. And when we were sitting on the ground getting ready to leave, the pilot came over the intercom and he's like, "Listen, when we get into Baghdad, don't be freaked out. We might have to do some evasive maneuvering, yada, 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 all this stuff." And we're thinking, well, I mean, we're flying a plane in, like, how bad can it be, And at this time, we are, 3 years into the conflict. So there's no army, there's no other opposing air force, there's no true weapon systems, to take down an aircraft. So you're relatively safe. And the green zone and the red zone are huge. People don't really know, like, Baghdad, if you look at it kind of like a city, whether it be Pittsburgh or Denver or Portland or wherever, like, imagine that city being taken over to the edge, and 80% of that city is gun free. And they still have Iraqis there. They still had everybody there. We just took over the majority of places, and like the hospitals, stuff like that. And they had the 28th Cache, which was a major big hospital and an actual hospital. It wasn't a tent. And then they had Baghdad International Airport. Well, on our approach in, they call and they tell us, hey, everybody get ready, get your seatbelt put on. And we were in a C-17, so not a very big, but not a small aircraft. And we were in a C-130 the first time I came in. And he starts to tilt the plane down, and then you hear him throttle back up as he dives, and he turns, and you're sucked against the wall, and you're just thinking, what is going on? Like, this dude, either he's trying to crash us.
G-force, huh?
Right. And he told us he was going to go in hot. He's like, listen, I don't play around. We're going to get to that runway really quick. But at the same time, you could hear, like, he banked left, he banked back to the right. And when he banked back to the right, you heard wah. And that's all you could hear was a really fat, like a whop let go. Like, you've heard a minigun, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it's just a burr, like,
burp,
yeah.
And then boom, burp, boom. And we're like, what is going on? Like, they were firing rockets at us, and they were using the miniguns to shoot them down right at the edge of the airport. Well, I don't know how close they were to that airplane, but at that moment, I realized we weren't in Kansas no more, Frodo. Like, we weren't in Kansas no more. And we got off the plane, and, all of us were, like, trying to act like we weren't a little freaked out. A couple guys had been to combat. I mean, I think 10 of the guys had been to Iraq or Afghanistan prior to us going. So we had a little bit of, a little bit of combat knowledge, but not a whole lot. And you really don't know if they're telling you the truth, right?
Right.
And our very first mission, we took contact. We were going out, and that's when they do right seat, left seat ride, like right seat, left seat rides. So basically, like, think of it as a car. If when they say, like, hey, they're going to take 3 guys out and a gunner that have been there forever. And they're going to take one of your guys out, a leader, and they're going to show them the area. So they'd done a couple of those. And we were at 50-50 mode, getting ready to go the other way, where they were taking out one of their leaders and mostly our guys. And we were out walking the fields, and we came up out of a reed line onto a road that had heavy reeds on both sides. And the guys were walking in a file, like the guys had already been there. And I remember thinking to myself, like,
it doesn't sound that smart.
Yeah, you have to shoot in a straight.
Right.
Every one of us, like, you're going to drop us. So, like, I kind of tried to get as skinny as possible, more or less, because then I was like, well, if I'm standing off to the side of the file, I'm the only Dingeldorf by myself. At least I got 30 bodies in front of me, and there's 30 bodies of arm. There's 60 plates in front of me, in between me and them. But we ended up taking fire directly from the head on. And our gunner, Nellison, was hitting the hand. And our interpreter, one of our interpreters, was hitting the kneecap and took his leg out. And so I think, if I remember right, that was Thanksgiving Day. Like, Thanksgiving Day, our commander had to call somebody's mom and say, hey, he ain't dead, but he got shot in the hand, and he's on his way home, because his hand was on top of his saw, on top of the sight. I don't remember what they call that sight, but the scope that they put on top of the saw, his hand was on top of it, and he had his hand on the trigger well like this, and he caught it right there in the knuckle in the top of the hand. The interpreter ended up losing his leg because it shot the top of his knee, the bottom of or I guess the bottom of his knee, the top of his tibia fibula, and just shattered it.
So
And
what were you under small arms fire at this point? Are you taking like 7.62 rounds at you guys, or something of the sort?
yeah, eight AK-47s at the time.
7.62 by 39. Yeah,
Yep.
they'll do some damage, man, for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely do a lot of damage, and especially especially if they're aiming. You deal with a lot of spray and pray guys that'll never be looking at you and shooting at you at the same time. But they did that, and then we got back, and from that day forward, it seemed like we were always in the thick of it. Excuse me, the thick of it. And I've been to reunions with these guys 3 times now, and we're getting ready to come up on our 20th. And we have guys that left our unit and went to Special Forces, and they're like, bro, we took less contact as Special Forces, and we went out and we picked fights. That's all we did. He's like, but when we went out, we took contact. We just walked around until we got shot at. That's what it felt like. We ran PSYOPs missions where we basically took stadium speakers on top of the Humvees and played Metallica at 1 a.m. until somebody shot at us. We walked around and we did the hard work that it took to really make it safe. And that's the truth, is like, when I went over there, like, I truly believed in liberating a people, from a tyrannical government. Did I believe in this whole hoopla of what the government was telling us? No, not really. But I knew if I went over there and I could give one kid any sort of freedom that we have, then that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like, but quickly I learned that it was a Sunni Shiite thing, that it didn't matter who had the upper hand, they were going to kill the other half. That they only cared about what their religion or what side of the religion they came from. And it was all about oppression. And that's because they don't know how to operate without a dictatorship. They never will be able to. They're just not that kind of a culture. They have to be led through fear. And so that makes it difficult.
Not to cut you off. Average Joe, what year was that? It's either the SDO or MDO. SDOs were usually on the SAW, and MDOs were usually on the M240s.
So it would be, I think it was the SDO. So, because we didn't carry 240s, that was too heavy because we were light dismount. And I never even shot a saw. I never carried, or I shot plenty of saws, but I never carried a saw because I wasn't a machine gunner. 2006, 2007. So I think it was the SDO. But yeah, so we ended up taking a lot of contact from a lot of different forms of contact. Whether it was small arms fire, SVD fire, which is your Soviet sniper rifles, and then we took improvised explosives
all the way up to Dishkas, I'm assuming.
Yes. We in my unit, or in my AO. So I was operating out of Fob Falcon, and then we had forward operating base. We were on Fob Falcon, and PB Red was my company's patrol base. And literally, you could drive down the highway most of the way there. You went through an Iraqi checkpoint, and after that, they had the road picketed. And what picketed means is they had a vehicle, an American vehicle, armored vehicle, staggered down the road. And they called it Route Red Wings for a reason. Red was because of the color of the road, because it was so bloody from people getting killed going down it. So much that they put strikers on it, and they put them out there 24/7. They never took their eyes off that road to make sure we could get in and out of that fog.
Because any chance they got, I'm assuming they were just fucking putting IEDs.
They still did. 3 times that we drove down that road, we found IEDs, and they had people on it. They would literally dig a ditch on their stomach, long enough, far away enough, deep enough that they could just dig it, throw the dirt behind them, and keep moving it behind them. Get up to the road, dig under the road, and you would never see them unless you were standing over it, or when you were driving, they were doing it. So like they just took their time. It probably could have taken 6 months to dig some of them, maybe a month, depending on how many guys did it. And we really did. We were talking about dishes, but we took flat guns out of there, and we didn't know we had a flat gun until we were shot at with a flat gun. We were in one of the villages, and a van pulled around the corner and turned, and like he turned away from us, and there was no back hatch on this van, and all of a sudden, boom, boom, and then the round goes by us, and thank God we were too close, because the round went right by us and it detonated beyond us. It's throwing shrapnel everywhere. It's meant to take.
So a Dishka, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but correct me if I'm wrong, but a Dishka is meant for anti-aircraft, right? Like it's big round.
That's a big round, yeah.
Gnarly.
But a flat gun's a 23 millimeter or larger, I believe, if I remember right. They shoot detonating rounds, so they go up and they frag out, like they blow up. So when the airplanes are flying way, way, way up there, they can still shoot that big ass bullet up there, and then they explode, and the shrapnel hits the plane and disintegrates it at that point. Puts holes all in it. They're probably, the vans they were using were like any other van. And I want to say that barrel stuck out like 6-7 feet from the back of it, and it was about like that big around. It wasn't like a 50 cal or a Dishka, because most people, like when you say Dishka, they don't know how reference the size.
Yeah, I think they're huge, dude. Yeah,
they're big, but they're mounted 99% of the time, regardless, right?
Yeah, but you're not carrying that thing.
Yeah, they're not huge. They're not like, and they are anti-aircraft. I don't want to say they're not, because you could definitely shoot a plane with them, or a helicopter. But that they're equivalent to a 50 cal, right? That's their answer to a 50 cal. But the flat gun was 23 millimeter, and then we were dealing with 80 millimeter mortars, and we were dealing with and smaller. I think and RPGs, but most of the RPGs were broken, so it was kind of more of a guessing game and watch the tail. They would just spin out and fly all in kind of different directions. Like they'd end up shooting their mom's house with a RPG, and they were aiming at us, and it'd fly backwards and hit their own guy or something because it was missing a fin.
Is it missing fins at that point, or is it because it's been sitting? Some people know this, some people don't. A lot of the weapons that the Taliban were using back then were coming from back Cold War era, warehouses full of bullshit. So,
well, there was a lot of the holdover weapons when we people don't realize that we gave them training weapons to help them fight the Russians back in the 90s. Plus, it was old leftover stuff left over from the Gulf War. You know what I mean? So they weren't always just running off of some archaic, old, I don't know, warehouse full of Kalashnikov,
right.
Shit like that. Some of it was actually, our weaponry, just from some of the guys that I know personally and friends of mine. And Trev, you already know some of the guys that are going to be on in the future, but we have a long-running track record of funding our enemies and then having them turn around and using the gun on us. And there was something that Average Joe raised that is a good point. Well, he agreed 100% with what you had said about the people over there not being able to function without some form of dictatorship. It's ingrained in their religious views, unfortunately, and we wasted So many lives for nothing. And the same goes for Afghanistan. And our former dementia patient in chief, we had a, left our equipment in Afghanistan, was slapped in the face of the fallen, which is 100% correct. That robot, that dried up old mummy, dude, like he had no idea what was going on.
I mean, a lot of people don't realize Bush's dad was in the CIA. Bush Sr., before he was president, he was CIA, right? Yeah, he was CIA.
He was like the director or the assistant director of that.
He put Saddam Hussein in power to go whoop Iran's ass. That's what he did with him. He was like, hey, I'm going to put you in charge of this country. I'm going to give you all this money to buy all these AKs, all these tanks, all these weapon systems. Go kick Iran's ass. So they did. And, like, fun fact that a lot of people don't know, the picture of the big cross sabers that they have, like you always see over there at the parade grounds. Mm-hmm. So cruise into those parade grounds that are down in Baghdad. They have helmets in the ground, right? And they're speed bumps.
Man.
You know what's in the helmets, Chris?
What was that?
Heads. They still have heads concreted in the ground so they can run them over when they disrespect them on the way into the parade grounds. And that's
what?
Yes, and that's something we were trying to tear apart. And all of us soldiers are like, whoa, 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 stop. Too many guys died for this. Like, whether it's our fight or not, whether they're our enemy or not, like, this is a war memorial. Do not tear this down. Like, this is something that they earned. You know what I mean? And so, like, we fought to keep the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier there the way it was, which is something that I got to see in multiple different countries now. And the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is just, it's exactly that. It's the representation of the unknown soldier that's been killed at war for whatever country that you live in. And that's one thing Saddam did. He knew how to throw a parade and show his weaponry after he whooped Iran back and forth across his country. But, they had those weapons from, I mean, that would have been late 80s, right? That happened. If I remember right, because I mean, Bush ain't that old. Bush's dad ain't. Bush Senior's long gone, but Bush's dad wasn't. He shortly after became president, and then his son became president, and then his son went and had to go clean up what he did. And at the same time, Cheney had all of his money wrapped up in Halliburton, and then what do you see? We're driving Humvees, and here comes this Halliburton semi. Wah, wah, and they're like, keep that thing safe. It's like, what? That dude's making $200,000 a year. Tell him keep him to himself safe, I'm over here deployed here. He's over here because he figure to protect himself, But there's a lot people don't understand about that side of the world, and that, like, average Joe, like over there, is they're not bad people, the whole of them. They really are barbaric. They're not well educated. They believe they're willing to die for it. So that's what makes them scarier, or I guess more dangerous. Not scary, but more dangerous, is that they have a reason to, and they're fighting on their own turf. Before when I was trying to find the article. The New York Times went out with my unit one morning, and we were taking out a bunch of EOD teams because we had gotten a report of a 500 or two 500-pound and one 1,000-pound ATDP bomb, right? And two 500 Willie Pete's. Now, how long has it been since somebody dropped bombs on that country?
Mm-hmm.
Not very long, because we bombed. But at the same time, you don't know how old they are because they've had a couple different wars in Iraq, right? Iran's fought with them. A couple different other countries tried to bomb them here and there. Well, we rolled out there and we found all three of them. The high explosive one, the high explosive deep impact, was ours that didn't detonate. And why they didn't know that, I still to this day don't know, because it was it wasn't older than my conflict. So I mean, it was what, 3 years or less. It was 3 years old or less, or since it fell off the airplane. So why aren't we tracking our bombs better to make sure that when we drop 1,000 pounds of high explosives on a country, that thing actually detonates when it hits?
Mhm.
The other two were like Russian or something, some other country, but they were some weird white phosphorus bombs that we had to go out there and blow up. And even though we were going out there to take bombs out of the fields for the farmers, we still got attacked 3 different times that day. And like the New York Times reporter, he was walking in front of us and he was like, "Oh, it's really nice out here." The sun was coming up and he's like, "It's really nice out here." And I'm like, "Yeah, you just wait. These guys got banking hours. Like, they just wake up and decide to start shit with us whenever they wake up. Like, they don't care. They know we're out here. They're not going to wake up early. They're not going to surprise. They're just going to literally roll out of bed, or they're going to roll off the top of the roof because it's too hot to be sleeping inside the house. They're going to stand on top of the house and start shooting at us." And it wasn't even 5 minutes later that old boy said that to that reporter, and that reporter was trying to find a hole in the wall to get through so fast, because we were inside of the part of the route Nat, right along the river, where it was all buildings, and it was right up against the road, and the road was a canal levee for the river, so it didn't overflow. So basically, we were on top of a triangle that was leveled out and had walls holding us in, so we had to find our way through. Luckily, some guys blew through doors, and we were able to get off. And only, I think we had one guy get shot in the chest plate. Adame, another saw gunner, for some reason, he got shot right in the chest plate, and he thought it was funny. He was a little bit psychopath, but he thought he was laughing. Like, I heard it come over the radio. He was one of my best friends, before we deployed and after, and while we were deployed, and I was freaking out, like, damn, Adame got hit in the chest. Is he okay? And then all of a sudden, like, we're running up to the front of the formation to get in front of him, because he was in the lead of the formation, or in the front element, and we were running around to give him protection. And like, I'll never forget hearing him start talking shit. You know what I mean? He was just like, then blah 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 blah, like, and then he was like, he was arguing with him that he could stay out front. It was like, how are you going to stay out front when you already took one to the chest, dude? Like, your body armor is compromised.
Yeah, your damaged plate, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, they say you can take like up to 7 rounds in some of those plates.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
I probably wouldn't. Yeah, I probably wouldn't want to test that.
No.
Find out.
Cody,
No.
were you providing Overwatch since you went through, sniper school and all that, and that was your main thing? Like, so on these, when you're in these spots like you're describing right now, where you're trying to help farmers and shit, I'm imagining that there's not really a whole lot of infrastructure for you to be posted up and laid out prone. Like, so how does that look when you're trying to provide Overwatch and, having to, are you proned out on the ground? Are you proned out in wherever you can be? What does that look like?
We stayed moving a lot, right?
Okay.
Anytime we were we were out moving, one of our sniper teams would break off, and it just depended on what our job was. Like, sometimes we were directly attached as snipers, and that's what our job was. Other times we were just part of the regular unit, and we were door kickers, and we were clearing. It just depended on the rotation and what mission we were running. But we would walk, 150 yards out, or 150 meters to the left or right of the element. And the reason we would do that is because guys would sneak up in between us, right? And now we would say, hey, Trevor, I'm going to be right here with you. I'm going to tell you when I get to these certain areas, so don't shoot if this dude's over here. We will find cover, and then you guys can lay him out, or we'll call in for fire, and we'll hit him with mortars. But in hopes that we could either pin them and eliminate them, or pin them and capture them, which happened more than you would think, and that was the biggest thing, is we wanted to gain intel, and we also wanted to get their eyeballs registered. Because back then we used to have a funny looking little Polaroid camera. It wasn't a Polaroid camera; it was a retinal scanner. So we would take a picture, we'd put your information into it, and then if you got caught doing bad guy shit again, we knew you had already gotten caught doing bad guy shit one time, so now we can do more about it. You know, there was enough infrastructure out there as far as houses go that depending on the mission, depending on what, we could be up on a rooftop, and a lot of those rooftops were, waist and or chest level high of a wall, because they sleep on the roofs because of the fact that it's so hot, and a lot of them don't even have power, much less air conditioning. So there was opportunities, and if not, you always try to get your interpreter and go house to house, and we'd figure out, we'd go kick a bunch of doors at 2 a.m. a month before we ran a sniper op, figure out who was in what house, and then we'd bribe them. We'd be like, hey man, listen, if you let us come in here and we can handcuff you to your table for a couple days, we'll pay you $500. Just let me hang out on your roof. You just stay in here and stay handcuffed to a table, answer your phone. My interpreter's going to sit down here with you, and he's going to tell me if you guys are on the phone saying some wild shit like come get him or something, And more often than not, we had yeses. We had families that wanted to get these people out of their area because they didn't agree with them.
Well, I don't blame them for wanting to, why would you want that stuff? I mean, there's many, many cases, not just, every now and then, where people were murdered for just talking to an American or coalition forces or NATO or whoever, that were brutally executed. I've seen enough of them jihadist blogs, bro, to know these aren't your garden variety type of evil.
Nope.
They're the worst of the worst. But they and it's a sad, situation for them. That they have to live in that kind of fear. Because you have an extremist faction that operate on a perversion of, the Quran and different stuff like that. And they subjugate everybody through, old school strong arm bullying, and and you see enough people, what happened? What are you going to do when you see enough people get shot for talking, or saying out of pocket shit? You just shut up and you just deal with it. And it's a wild state. So how did you, to move it forward a little bit, like when did you, because you're 2-time Purple Heart recipient, like how did you end up getting those hearts, bro?
So in January of 2007, we were on a dismounted movement, and we were headed back to the patrol base, and we were in a V formation, and the reason we did that is so that the guys on the edge of the outer V's in front you would hope all the guys passing would see a wire or see the bomb before, whatever detonating mechanism the power source was. And we were walking, and I was on the road with my interpreter. So I was literally at the back of not my interpreter, my medic. And I was literally right next to him in the right lane. And he was in the incoming traffic if you're in America. But if you're there, they're driving on, I'm in incoming traffic. Or walking head onto traffic.
Oh, not to cut you off real quick before we continue. $20 super chat from Keith Peterson. Thank you, brother, for coming, being here. Not sure how we'll do, but here's a coffee or a soda for the three of you. Thank you so much, my friend.
Right on, thank you.
But as you were saying.
But yeah, so we were walking, and I remember we were not taking fire. I could hear gunfire, and I had turned around, and I was walking backwards, and I looked at my medic, and I was like, man, they better get a lot closer if they want to do shit, because they were just back there firing, basically harassment fire, just making us think they were closer than they were.
Right.
As I was turning around, I heard the old school original Nokia ringtone. That is the one thing.
Oh shit, bro! All right.
one sound that fucks me up in this world. The one. It's that ringtone. And I remember I heard it and I had enough time to look at it and be like, what the fuck? And it detonated. And when it did, it blew a hole through this shoulder. So you could literally at the time see through my right shoulder. It was about the size of a nickel roll.
It's a gnarly scar for sure.
Now it looks like two buttholes on my arm, but it literally looks like when I flex them in your person, it's kind of funny looking. I always tell my daughter all the time, I'm like, look at my little butthole, and she's like, you're gross, Dad. I'm like, you're just jealous. You ain't got 3 of these. I do, but, so I got that. And then I had pieces of shrapnel. And, did I send you the pictures, Chris, of my shadow box?
No, I
Okay.
had.
I'll send him to you afterwards, and then if we ever get back on, maybe you can show him. So I took a piece of metal that was 3.8 pounds, a piece of shrapnel straight to the helmet, and I literally almost got court-martialed over my helmet because it stopped this piece of metal, and I wanted to keep the helmet, but they wanted to send it back to Kevlar or whoever made it so that they could analyze it, because it should have went right through like a piece of butter. It was too big. B, it should have broke my neck. But if I wouldn't have turned and like looked down at it, it would have went right through here. It would have just canoed my head. But just hearing the ringtone was enough for me to orientate, look at it, and it detonate. So I spent 31 days getting better. I didn't ever leave country, because as soon as I got to the hospital, I was like, what? I was sitting there. I was like, nobody has a gun here. Like, what is wrong? We're in Iraq. Where's my gun? What did you do with it? And there's all these doctors and medics, and I'm like, who's got a gun? And they're like, nobody. They're like, this is a gun-free zone. I'm like, we're in Iraq, a gun-free zone.
How's that work? Yeah.
Like, we're in Baghdad. Like, what is this? And then they explain, well, you're in the green zone, and there's like 5 miles of whatever before you, and that those people that do have guns that are bad guys are able to touch you. And then I was within 9 IEDs. I was within like 25 feet of 9 IEDs in 6 months. The final straw, my second Purple Heart, was a VBID the summer of 2007. We were on top of the roof of the patrol base, and there was some guys out on a bridge. Now we may have to make a longer one because it's already been a while we've been on here. But so we had some guys hanging out on a bridge. They asked me to come up, fire warning shots at them. I shot the concrete. I messed the dude's leg up with concrete. I hit it with a 50 cal right on the edge of the concrete, blew it to pieces. They jumped off the bridge and then got back up there bleeding. And it says on the edge of the bridge in 3 different languages, if you are here and hanging out, you will be killed. Lethal force will be used. Like, get over this bridge and get off of it. Well, we decided to send a squad out and do a patrol. And as the squad was leaving, we took contact from 360 degrees. And it was a very large coordinated attack on the patrol base. And at the same time, they had a guy that had a big rider-sized moving truck, but a flatbed with cattle rails on it, full of chicken feed. That wasn't chicken feed. It was just covered in chicken feed, and it was a big bomb. It was 4,800 pounds of homemade explosives, and they drove it at us in the middle of this firefight. I'm running across the roof, and people are like, there's a guy here, there's a guy here. So I'm running around, as one of the only snipers on the roof. I'm running around trying to take the longer, accurate shots of these guys that are harder for these guys on the roof to hit, or guys that were in positions that they couldn't necessarily get to them because of the type of position they were in. Like the gun positions were, the guns wouldn't reach over because the mounts were stopped at the wall or by the sandbags that we had set up over them and everything. And all I remember is I heard V-bid, and they started screaming V-bid, and my 50 cal was sitting in the middle of the roof, and I ran for it because it was just sitting unsafe. I ran for it. I picked it up. I put it to my shoulder. I acquired the guy. I pulled the trigger. I seen the inside of the truck turn pink and red, and then it detonated. Like, I don't remember. Like, I remember waking up thinking that, like, coming to and thinking we got hit with a mortar on the roof. But I had flown, and my back plate was busted so bad that, like, I had flown into the wall and hit my back against the wall, and it broke my scapula up into pieces, like they refer to as bony islands around my right shoulder blade. And my back, I had tore away on the right side. I had tore away all the soft connective tissue from my T9 to my T12. So my thoracic spine was basically tore away, all the soft muscles, soft tissue that connects the muscles. I'm a little bit better now, but for a few years I couldn't even do anything, and that ended up being the second Purple Heart that ultimately retired me, because I couldn't even carry 50 pounds. Like, my back would lock up. I couldn't go out on mission anymore, because I would just become a casualty. I wouldn't even be shot at, and we'd have an issue. I wouldn't even be hurt, but I would be hurt. So that was my two Purple Hearts that I have. And that story it was a crazy time when that patrol base got hit, because it was coordinated. It was probably 100 guys on about 12 of us, and they blew the wall down. And the last thing that they heard on the radio from my lieutenant was "broken arrow, fuck," and then it went dead. So they were all scrambling to get aircraft out to us to get, because broken arrow means the wall has fallen, that they can just run in. Little they know, we were firing up the Humvees. Guys were down there driving them into the holes in the wall, turning the guns, and we were getting frisky with them again already.
Yeah.
But, like, they had dropped the gun positions on top of our 240 Bravos, on top of our 50 cals. They had dropped thousands of pounds of sandbags on tops of our Mark 19s, which are automatic grenade launchers. You want to talk about a good time? That's a good time. Shooting an automatic grenade launcher is about the most fun you can ever have.
I can imagine.
Oh yeah, it's like poop, 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 and then you wait, and as soon as you think they aren't going to go off, it's just. But so those are my two Purple Hearts.
So sorry, Chris, just give me 1 second. In the intro, some of the pictures Chris put in is from that incident that you had sent me and Chris. And man, that's some gnarly photos. Like, you can tell the mass destruction that V-bid did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like, dude, that amount of explosives, like, I can't imagine. That's insane.
That's what Timothy McVeigh hit the Oklahoma City building with.
Well, yeah, bro. Like, they had, like, even after I sat with Greg Scarpa, he did time with Terry Nichols, his co-conspirator.
Yeah.
The Department of Defense had gone out. He had a boatload of the FBI had missed a crawl space loaded. He had enough explosives in there to probably blow up several New York blocks. Like, could you imagine all that after? And this is like 10 years after the fact. That amount of explosives just chilling in a hot crawl space by itself. Yeah. Like, so, and you're talking about probably 14, 15 times that amount packed on the back of a truck and driven in like a battering ram. Like, even that road bucking and bumping the truck, I'm surprised the thing didn't blow up miles ahead, bro. You know what I'm saying?
No, definitely. That stuff, that homemade explosives is very volatile. It's not.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And some of these guys, I mean, yeah, they know how, they have sophistication when it comes to the detonators, but a lot of times, like the containers that they're housing the explosives in or whatever, it's like, it's really not, probably the best shit. You know, so I mean, I've read countless cases of them trying to plant IEDs and then blowing themselves up by accident. You know what I'm saying? Takes a little bit of spark or just
Well,
the
it's
wrong
even,
thing to hit.
yeah, it's even, static electricity in a lot of cases. It depends on what they're using. If
Yeah,
they're using, live munitions to make IEDs, it's a slightly different story. But if they're building the composition in order to make explosives, like, man, a fucking spark, you're done. A
Cook.
fucking static shock, you're done. Like, it
oh
doesn't,
yeah, dude.
like, you're cooked, bro.
And if you have somebody in that situation that has a truck like that, could you imagine the amount of carnage that would be inside of a major city
Oh yeah.
anywhere on the globe?
Yeah.
Like, think about that night. What was it, like 10 years ago, where the bombs were going off all over Paris? Like, having one big bomb like that, like, I can't even imagine the loss of life that would come from that. It's insane, bro. You're like, dude, God was definitely looking out for your ass, bro. That's 100%.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I hit a wall that was like that big. Like it was barely bigger than me. Otherwise, I'd have went through plywood that was used to screen us from walking up, so that they couldn't just see us and shoot at us walking across the patio and going up to the top,
Right.
or blown off. And at this point, we're talking about third story. We're not even talking the second story. It's a 2-story house, and then we're on top of the roof of that. So it was beyond I mean, all of us, the fact that we survived that is all up, that was all on God's hands. They found the engine block, right? They found the engine block 380 meters away.
Jesus Christ, bro.
That's
But all,
fucking nutty, dude.
I mean, the engine block was a difference of what, 100 feet? I know there's a lot of dissipation in that, but that percussion was enough to launch me. My squad leader looked like they filleted his arm with a piece of metal, like it was just clean cut, and it was this big old flap of skin. Hildago looked like he got hit with a bunch of big buckshot, but other than that, and then Lipsky, like, we had already flown everybody out, and I got drove out because I was sitting there with Lipsky, and we were smoking a cigarette, and I remember, like, the helicopters were taking off, and I'm like, shit, these dudes are gonna hit the house, man. Like, we better get down before they cut our head off. But like, you don't know how far away they are. It seems like the rotor's right there, but like, we sit down, and like Lipsky and I were sitting there, and it was like, I remember it was like we were like, it was like a Vietnam movie to me. He's like, man, and he pulled a cigarette out, and we started smoking, and he's like, he looks down at his foot, and he's like, what the fuck is that? And in the heel of his boot was a piece of metal like this deep.
Oh, fuck.
Right? So think about that. You're surrounded by concrete, the walls, at least your feet up. The lowest part there was knees, and there was sandbags up to your chest. So even in that one section where they had blown up, it was the most vulnerable. But there was a piece of metal in his boot. Didn't hit him, didn't go in his foot, but it went right in. Like, and how? How did that work?
Shot right through the damn concrete like a bullet, dude, bro.
Like,
that's crazy, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that wasn't through, in his foot, because thinking about that made me jump, bro. Like a fucking chunk of metal through. Yeah, dude, that would have been fucking gnarly.
That made my beard grow back, dude. But no, when it's all said and done and you retire, like, how did you adjust back to your family, bro? Like, and just, I know there's a lot more to everything that goes beyond that point, but like,
yeah,
how do you adjust back to this world? You know what I'm saying?
You don't. I mean, you try. I mean, me and Trevor's talked about this quite a bit. Like, it's kind of like coming out of prison, as much as you want. And I've came out of both. I spent 5 years doing both. But you don't, like, it's something that, as a sniper, like, you're directly taking lives, and as an infantryman, you're not indirectly taking lives, but you're not looking down a scope. Like, it's two different shoots. in excuse me, the case of in the case of a firefight, it's a lot quicker. You know, it's not so intimate, it's not so quick, it's they're not so slow. It happens, and then you're on to the next thing that's going on in the firefight. Um, you know, I ended up catching my first case over it because some guy at a bar was mouthing off. I was willing to fight him. His buddy was trying to stick up for him, and he was some Arabic motherfucker, spoke no English, and he was reaching. He was a big old dude, and he was reaching for something in his waistband. I pulled my pistol and fired shots right over all their heads, you know. And luckily, I had a really good attorney that told the judge, like, my client's a sniper. Like, it's not 27 attempted murders. He only had 15 bullets in the gun, so you can only tell him 15 attempted murders. And if he wanted to murder anybody, they would be murdered. It wouldn't be attempted charging him with murder. He didn't.
Especially close range like that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, it sounds like to me he was following his training. And you know, long story short, I went to the state hospital here in Colorado and I pled for an impaired mental condition. The doctor granted it, which is a crapshoot in itself, that the doctor is going to be a good human being and not work for the state and just turn you over. But, you know, like, I didn't adjust. You know, it took me 20 years probably to get to the point I'm at now, where I'm not compensating using alcohol, drugs, or violence, or sex, or gambling, or all of the above at once. You know, like, I know guys that couldn't, and they took their lives. You know, we lost like 27 guys overseas, and I think we've lost another 20 since we've been home. So out of 100 guys, half of us are gone. That doesn't make sense. Why?
Yes.
You know, but at the same time, I don't have the answer. I'm the vet. I've been there. I've done that, and I've came home. There is no. It's just, I think there just needs to be more acceptability and understanding for what veterans are truly going through that have been deployed verifiably to a war zone.
Yeah, I want to go throw that on. I want to go on record with that. Combat veterans, like, because you know what, when I see people like, and I respect anybody that joins the military, but there are those that were stateside or doing a cushy ass deal to, like, you know, Europe, never got put in the combat zone. And I feel like that still falls under stolen valor to me, you know, in my world, because you're misrepresenting your stay and your time in the service. Yeah. And I feel like there's some of it takes away from, it takes away from those that are actually wrestling with their demons. And because more times than not, it's not even the war zone that gets them killed. It's them, the shit that they do, and when it's quiet, you know what I mean? And they have nothing but that time for your mind to reflect and twist those gears, bro. And but yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, bro, that, you know, that these come back. And you know, I think back on the Vietnam vets and how they were received when they came back, you know, it's a different world. And even in this war, we had scumbags like the Westboro Baptist Church that were actively protesting veteran funerals, and pieces of shit like Antifa desecrating memorials. And like JD said earlier, if you want to prove to us that you're not Antifa, you better like this video and show Cody that respect. But they, yeah, man, like, we do need to allocate more money, bro, into, like, you know, vets getting proper treatment. And sometimes you have these doctors that don't know fucking jack all shit. They just over medicate, and they don't. That's not solving the problem.
Nope.
I think that there's a huge second half to Cody's story. You know, I know part of it. I think that we're right about getting ready to touch that nerve. I know that we're 2 hours and 8 minutes in. I'm fucking cooked. I need to say goodnight to my kids. If you guys want to continue, I'll be right back. If y'all want to wrap some things up.
Yeah, we'll take us out, and then there'll definitely be a part 2. Plus, we'll have Cody back. We got some other, things we got to talk about, and
Yeah, there's a lot left, Cody. You already know.
I appreciate all the new faces that showed up for me and Trev and Cody.
Absolutely.
Like there's a lot of tribe up in here tonight. I see, my One Light family like represented in the chat as well. But I always want to give the shout outs to, to our big brother, the Alaskan Avenger. He wasn't here with us tonight, but I'm sure we'll get him back here soon. Amy, if you could share Jason's stuff. I'm not 100%, but he might be live tomorrow. We got to find that out. Yeah. But it'll be up on YouTube if he's live.
Yep. Good chance.
And share the link for his for the merchandise. So I'm wearing one of his Halloween edition One Light shirts designed by Amy Powers. Fantastic.
Looking fucking clean, bro.
Joe, Jen, thank you for the podcast. It was great to listen to. His experience brings back memories. Brother, full invitation anytime you want to come and sit with us. Anytime, brother. And thank you, Joe, for your service.
Thank you.
Yes.
As well. Yeah, you can also check us out. Our good friend Anthony Arlotta's got Money, Mayhem, and the Mafia that's coming out soon. He'll be back on the show to sit with all of us soon enough. I want to give a special thanks to JD Delay for showing up and bringing the family over here. And the other guys, all the links are below, for all the past guests and stuff like that. Johnny A-Light, Gucci Boomer. We got a lot of great shit coming up. Me and Trevor, we kind of building this plane while flying it. We got a lot of changes coming and crazy stuff. So, but I appreciate all the love, support. Keith Peterson, it was great to have you coming out. Chrissy, it's good to see you. Yes, I saw you're late, but yeah, rewatch it and then we'll talk to you later. But with that being said, we're out of here. Unless Trev, you got something you want to say on the way out?
Nope, I'm good.
Cody,
All right,
Cody, thanks for coming back.
Absolutely. I'll see you later, brother.
All right, bro. I'll talk to you all soon.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, bye.